All right, guys, this is Justin and Doug from All Angles. We're actually going to preview the UFC's debut on ESPN. It is going to be Henry Cejudo, TJ Dillashaw for the flyweight title, where Henry Cejudo is fighting for the entire division to see if they can save it, because I think the consensus is that Dillashaw, if he wins the title, champ, no more flyweights.
So here's my thing. Do you believe that storyline? Do you believe if Cejudo wins and the flyweights stay?
I do.
Okay.
Because there's fresh matchups there. Cejudo's doing everything he can to really build this fight up.
Yeah.
I don't see why would you really even book this fight if you're going to get rid of it regardless. Then why even book it?
What's weird to me though, like when you first hear about this fight, I felt like if it went in TJ's weight, then TJ really had a favorable matchup. But him coming down to Cejudo for the first time, being at that weight, I actually am starting to lean towards Cejudo to win this fight. I feel like Cejudo, physically he looks great. I think that he knows how to be in this type of condition, this type of weight. He knows how to handle it. I think TJ, as confident as he is, I think he might have bit off a little bit more than he can chew when it comes to his first opponent at this weight class. And I've seen pictures of him on Instagram and stuff, and like he still has like another 7 pounds to go, and he already looks like a crackhead. Like it's gonna be a really brutal cut for him.
Or maybe he can hit that weight, but what is he really doing to himself? How much is that going to take out of him just to hit that weight?
Right. And not only that, you're going up against a killer in Cejudo. I mean, Cejudo is a Olympic beast, and I think that Cejudo might actually win this fight. I think TJ definitely has the upper hand in the stand up. I think that it's going to be a kind of a chess match at first, but I think if TJ can't get Cejudo out of there in 2 rounds or so, then that's when it's really going to start to. He's kind of hit the panic button, because I think now TJ is really confident in his hands, and I think that his stand up is his bread and butter. And if it doesn't work out, I don't know. But I also think that he has an ego too, and I think he might try to keep the fight, try to take Henry Cejudo down and prove that he can out-wrestle him too. You know what I mean? An Olympic wrestler, and I can take you down type thing. So it's an interesting fight. I like the fight a lot, though.
Well, when Cejudo got knocked out against Demetrius Johnson, it was really quick.
Yep.
It was like a flash knockout. Was it even a minute into the first round? So then you saw what happened in their last fight. Obviously, he pulled out a very close decision, but that's been the one time we saw him actually get knocked out.
Well, and another thing, too, is like, I feel like Cejudo shipped off Mighty Mouse. Like, I really do. Like, I don't think Mighty Mouse would have left the UFC if he'd have won. And I feel like Cejudo really basically ended the Mighty Mouse era in the UFC. And I don't think he gets enough props for that. That's a huge accomplishment. Mighty Mouse was a very dominant champion, and he won the fight. And honestly, a rematch didn't matter enough to Mighty Mouse to stay. So to me, that's shocking. I felt like as a champion, Mighty Mouse, as long as he had defended the title and all that, like you would think he'd want a rematch. And what's interesting to me is let's say TJ Dillashaw wins, and the UFC tries to get rid of the division or goes ahead and gets rid of the division. That rematch is happening 100% at ONE FC, in my opinion. And if Mighty Mouse still doesn't want that fight, then I really question why he is fighting.
Yeah, because if Johnson would have beat Cejudo again, you're looking at Johnson Dillashaw.
Yep.
That was supposed to be the fight even a year ago.
And that's another thing, too, to fall back on, is that the reason that this fight is happening is because this is the fight that TJ wanted in the first place, but he wanted to fight the champion. He wanted Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse refused to have that fight. Cejudo is more than willing to take that fight. So to me, Cejudo deserves a ton of respect for that, because this is something that Mighty Mouse would not do. So, I love the fight. And it was going to be a main event and a pay-per-view. And they scraped the pay-per-view, but now you're getting a UFC main event on ESPN Plus. As fans, we can't ask for much more than that.
No, because as we run down that, you're going to see how loaded of a card it is, at least for name's sake.
Agreed.
How loaded it is. You may not get 3 titles or something just crazy like that. But diving right into it, not really, when I say namesake, not that someone that is like a big veteran in the UFC, but Greg Hardy gets the controversial co-main event slot against Howling Crowder. So I'm going to let you dive into that Dallas Cowboy.
You're right. So when I first saw that Greg Hardy was going to be on the ESPN Plus card, I was like, ESPN wants this. This is why they're doing this, because ESPN has gone through so many stories with Greg Hardy, and they want this fight. They're going to try to keep it undercover that they want this fight, but they want this fight. On top of that, all the controversy, because it's on the same card as Rachael, and she got beat up by her husband, and like, how dare you? How could you do that? And the UFC just doesn't care. They don't care. Not only do they not care, they are giving this man the co-main event. Are you kidding me? Like, it's like, in case you kind of miss what we're doing, let me just throw it right in your face, because that's what they're doing. So it takes a lot of balls. And I also kind of think that that's their mindset at this point, is they don't care. They're not worried about this whole PC era. They're not worried about being politically correct. They're just like, look, we believe in Greg Hardy. We believe in giving second chances, and he should be able to fight. And if he's going to be on our roster, we could put him on the card with anybody, and we don't care who it is. And I don't care how insensitive it looks. Part of me applauds that mentality, because it does take guts, and you're running your business the way that you think so, and you're not going to let people dictate how you're going to run your business. Part of me thinks you probably could have booked him on something else, or you could have booked her on something else, and it might not have looked as bad, and you could have kind of been low-key about it. So just quick, with Greg Hardy, the Cowboys desperately needed a pass rusher. Greg Hardy was a free agent. He was a way for us to get an elite pass rusher for somewhat cheap money. And so when we were interested in him, I was extremely excited. I did my research on this whole case. Like, I really looked into it. And at the end of the day, there is no smoking gun. There is no smoking gun that proves that he did this. Yes, she had bruises on her shoulder. That could mean a lot of things. It doesn't mean that he dragged her by her hair, slammed him on a bed with all these guns all over it, and, did whatever else they said that he did. Not only that, she is not some princess either. Like, she was into multiple drugs. She was a waitress. She did a lot of cocaine. It was a bad situation regardless. Greg Hardy was on cocaine. She was on cocaine. It wasn't like this is going to be something pretty. And I know for a fact Greg Hardy used cocaine while he was with the Dallas Cowboys. Greg Hardy also was a big-time partier. He was a bad influence on a lot of our guys. I was not shocked when he was not allowed to come back. So you got to think how rock bottom he hit. He was into drugs really hardcore. He got basically kicked out of the NFL. And now he's been on this big winning streak in MMA, and he's shown a lot of impressive power. He knocks guys out real quick. I think my biggest concern with Greg Hardy is he leaves his chin wide open. And so that's what I've seen from fights. But, man, when he hits you, it hurts. And not only that, he has a very big killer instinct. Like, he looks like when he gets you hurt, he is going in for the kill. And that's my thing, too, is a guy that big, if he really wanted to just destroy a woman, he could have absolutely did that. And he didn't do that. She walked away with bruises on her shoulders. So just think about that. I know that we're in a world of just condemning people and immediately saying they're guilty and all this stuff. And I know that a federal court said that he was guilty, and then she all of a sudden didn't show up and all this stuff. And it's a very controversial case. But at the end of the day, I do think Greg Hardy should be allowed to fight again. At the end of the day, I do respect the fact that UFC is giving him a chance. And he could be a big-time contender if he continues to develop.
Now, as polarizing as Greg Hardy is, like I mentioned to you earlier, actually, they're doing a press conference this week, and at that press conference, it's going to be Cejudo, Dillashaw, Donald Cerrone, and Alexander Hernandez, not your Greg Hardy. They want to. I don't know how they're going to play this exactly. Now, if he ends up taking a loss, however that may come, if that happens, different scenario. But if this guy actually goes on a roll where he's going to be featured on these cards, on the main card, I mean, for how long will they keep him out of the spotlight like this just to avoid the topic? Because the thing is, This topic isn't just going to go away because it's his first fight. Oh, if he gets a big win, he looks good, we're just going to drop this topic. It's going to always be attached to him, and that's the thing that they have to deal with.
And this is a thing that I think he needs a lot of practice on. I do not think he handles these questions well with the media. He tries to sound cocky, and he tries to change the subject really quick, and he just comes across as completely unremorseful for what he supposedly did or what he's been accused of or whatever the case may be. I feel like he could have just be like, look, I put myself in an extremely bad situation. Things that happened, I totally regret, and I'm just here to move on. That did not happen with the Dallas Cowboys. It was just like, I look good, don't I? And yeah. No, I'm great to be back. It's great to be back. And man, Tom Brady's wife is fine, ain't she? And you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna come out there guns blazing, and I'm ready to do this and that. Like, he just kept avoiding the situation. And we know how MMA media is. And I promise you, Ariel Helwani is waiting for that man. Ariel Helwani cannot wait to talk to Greg Hardy. And he is going to give him some very uncomfortable questions. And I really think the UFC needs to kind of give him some PR training to make sure that he handles some of these situations better. Because if he comes across like he does not care or that he got away with it or whatever the case may be, it is not going to be pretty for him or the UFC.
Now, looking on the other side of it, if Hardy does take a loss here,
yeah,
by whatever means, does he get the CM Punk treatment? And what I mean by that is not that they just cut him, but they give him another shot, maybe not as high profile as this, but is it kind of, we're going to give you a shot or two, or are they just going to try to drag this out and get whatever value that they can out of his name until it's just like 4 or 5 straight, then we'll cut him.
Well, and it's interesting, too, because we're talking about the heavyweight division. So if you do get clipped, that could be it. And it might not even be based on how good the guy is or whatever. Like, you know, you're wearing those small gloves, you get hit, that's it. So I don't know. I mean, I think they're going to try to take Greg Hardy slowly. I mean, you know, the Crowder, we don't know much about him. I don't think he's really a real threat. It's more of a showcase fight for Greg Hardy. So I think they plan on with every intention of him winning this fight. And then, you know, if he doesn't turn out to be what they think he is, then I think they'll move on. But I think that they view Greg Hardy as a big upcoming prospect that's undefeated in MMA. Like, I feel like if Greg Hardy didn't have this troubled past, he has done enough with what he's done in MMA and what he did in the Contender Series to get a shot. So I think the fact that he has this past and he is known, then it just adds more to it. And then you're talking about an actual draw, an actual guy that people are going to want to see fight. So it just adds more to it. But I think just as a prospect and based on his skills, you know, when you are a pass rusher, your hands are very important. And I mean, I've seen Greg Hardy just right through offensive linemen's hands. Like, he is a dynamic pass rusher, and I think he brings a lot of those power and skills to the MMA cage. He is an athlete for sure.
Well, someone we know who is a prospect coming up, Gregor Gillespie, is going to be taking on always exciting Yancy Medeiros. And what should be an entertaining fight. Now, Gregor Gillespie, he's 12-0. He's 5-0 in the UFC. And like I said, with Medeiros, always an exciting fighter. It's just with him, it's win one, lose some. Win one, lose some.
Yancy is extremely exciting. He is not a smart fighter. You know, he's just going to go out there and go guns blazing and hope things goes his way. I think Gillespie is more of a guy that they actually could build upon. You know, he's undefeated. Yancy's just that next step to get to more of a name contender. I think Gillespie should win this fight, but man, Yancy's game. You're going to have to beat Yancy with a baseball bat to get him to stop walking forward. And eventually, you know, he can get rocked, he can get stopped, but he will keep going as long as he can. So he can be a dangerous fighter just because he just keeps coming forward until he can. You know. It should be an exciting fight, though, for sure.
Yeah, and Gillespie just now broke into the rankings. He's ranked number 15, and I think, like Doug's saying, he needs a name that he can really get a win off of to really break through in the rankings as well. So Yancy should give him a test, at least on the feet. So Moving on to Joseph Benavidez, Dustin Ortiz in the flyweight division, where Benavidez is sitting at that number 2 spot like he's been for such a long time. If Dustin Ortiz, who's sitting at 8 or 9, if he can get the win with Benavidez, he can break right into title contention out of nowhere.
Absolutely.
Which we'll see what happens with that flyweight division.
Another thing that's weird about Benavidez is he just signed a new 4-fight deal, and they're supposedly supposed to get rid of the division. So how does that work? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's an interesting note when you think about it like that. You would think that they have to keep it around. I know they cut a couple guys, but that was it. They didn't just cut 20 guys.
Yeah, agreed. I don't know. And like part of me feels like a lot of the hate for the division came from Mighty Mouse himself. Like Mighty Mouse didn't really do himself any favors when he's basically talking about, well, fans don't know what they're talking about, or like they wouldn't know a great fighter if they saw one, because all they care about are blood and guts and blah blah blah. And like I really feel like people started to have a resentment towards Mighty Mouse, and I think that affected how they cared about the division. I think if someone like a Cejudo becomes like a real deal and is constantly defending the title, I think people would care more about that division.
Right. Well, it's something fresh and new. You got so used to watching DJ just dominate the division for so long.
Right. And not only that, it was like there were really no contenders either. Like there was no, Cejudos or anything. There, of course, there was when he beat him, but not for a while before we got there. Like I remember Dotson being like the most interesting matchup, and then it took a while, like, beating Ray Borg and all that stuff. Like, at this point now, like, Cejudo's facing TJ Dillashaw. That's a killer. And I really wish Mighty Mouse would have fought him just for his resume. If you're going to talk about being the GOAT and all that stuff, you have to fight fighters like that. And so, and in my opinion, I don't have Mighty Mouse in the GOAT rankings at all, because when you had to fight top-level competition, you lost to Dominic Cruz and you lost to Henry Cejudo, and you can't ignore those. And then you didn't want to fight TJ Dillashaw, so like I can't do that. I just can't put him in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean he fought John Dodson twice.
Yep.
When he fought Henry Cejudo for a second time, it was after Cejudo racked up 2 wins just to fight him again.
Yep.
I mean, granted, we got to where we are today.
Right.
So
what's interesting is he really refused to fight TJ Dillashaw only basically to fight Henry Cejudo again, and it totally backfired on him.
Right. So. I don't know how you want to categorize this fight. Paige VanZant and Rachael Ostovich, which really the media's been picking up on Ostovich and Greg Hardy being on the same card, but separate from that, these two women actually fighting each other. Other than people actually knowing their faces, that's what we're really recognizing here to, I guess, be mature about it. They're not really fighting for a title eliminator spot of some sort. VanZant's lost the last 2. She's been gone for the last year. Same thing for Ostovich. She's win 1, lose 1. So
do you remember Strikeforce when it was like Ronda Rousey versus Miesha Tate, and they were like shooting their commercials in dresses, and they were both like there, and it was like the hot chick versus the hot chick.
Right.
Like that's what this kind of reminds me of.
And again, it's on this ESPN debut card, and you want to question like how much how much say does UFC have versus ESPN? What are they actually agreeing on here? It kind of goes back to the Greg Hardy being in a co-main spot as well. So
I think they wanted Paige VanZant, and then it was like, who could we match her up against? Where 1, it's somewhat a winnable fight, and 2, it could be a marketing fight that we could market, and I think that's where it came into play.
Right.
Like I said with Rachael, recently her husband abused her, and there's no denying that. That's exactly what happened. He was arrested. She had black eyes to prove it. And she has a weird stance. Basically, Dana White has said that she has no problem being on the card with Greg Hardy. A lot of people didn't buy that at all. A lot of people wanted to be like, oh, poor Rachael. She's forced to say that because Dana will fire her and blah, blah, blah. But if you watch that Ariel Helwani interview, like, no, this is really what she believes. She believes that guys deserve second chances. She seems almost like she wishes her husband would get a second chance. Like, even the man that beat her, she still seems more than willing to forgive him. So it's kind of like that typical abused mentality, and I don't know, it's different. But a win over Paige VanZant would be big for her career. I feel like Paige VanZant is a couple of losses away from leaving MMA, but we'll see. I don't know. It's at least an interesting fight. It's a fight that's caught people's attention basically because of their looks and also because that division isn't that stacked, and you never know if this fight could build a contender or anything like that. So it should be a good fight.
Outside the main event, the one fight that probably interests me the most, Donald Cerrone returning back to lightweight to take on the up-and-comer Alexander Hernandez, who's been on a roll the last few fights that he's been in UFC. With Donald, it seems like when that dude is focused without just having this mentality of, I just want to take whatever the UFC throws at me for my next fight, let's just throw down.
Right.
When he's actually focused, I mean, he worked himself to a title shot against RDA a couple of years ago.
Right.
Fell short of it, but it seems like when he's on his game, he can really do something with it. I want to see if he's actually truly focused to really make another run towards that title, or at least for the title shot. And then at the same time, this is going to be Alexander Hernandez's true toughest test that he's had in the UFC. So,
well, what I found interesting is when he beat Mike Perry, Tattoo Face, he was big on calling out Conor and getting that Conor fight, and like people were buying into it and wanted to see it and all this stuff, and like it was getting some hype. And then it's like, okay, he's gonna fight some unknown. Like what?
yeah.
But that's such a Cowboy thing to do, and that's why the UFC loves Cowboy. That's why the fans love Cowboy. We're not in this whole, so-and-so's manager says they only fight this guy or that he'll only do this if he gets this and blah, blah, blah. Like, you're never going to get that from Cowboy. So Cowboy's down. He's willing to fight. It should be a good fight. It takes balls to fight young up-and-coming guys. It's dangerous fights. Hopefully this doesn't turn into a Darren Till situation where when he decided to go up there and face Darren Till and got absolutely obliterated, because like I said, the problem is fighting these unknown guys. You just don't know how good they are until they get to fight somebody.
It's Leon Edwards as well.
Right.
That happened last year.
So, and that's how I kind of feel right now with Usman, fighting Woodley. It's like, what if Usman's like the real deal?
Yeah.
We don't know yet because
it's a different topic. They have similar fight styles.
Right.
That's what you're getting to, though.
But I'm just saying, like, you just don't know with these up-and-comers how good they are until they get a shot at somebody really good.
Right.
And so far, with like I said, with Usman, he's done his job and beat anybody that he's put up against. So we're going to find out in a couple months how good he really is. What if he's the same way? What if he just goes there and steamrolls Cerrone and it's like, oh, it's like Ortega against Edgar. Like, well, Ortega beat Cub Swanson. Okay, no big deal. Oh, he just knocked out Frankie Edgar in a couple of minutes. Like, wow, okay, he's the real deal. So you just never know. And I like fights like these because it could go either way. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So who do you have in the prediction category? Who you got, Cejudo or TJ Dillashaw?
Man, that's tough. I mean, because you brought up the good points about Dillashaw really cutting the amount of weight that he's cutting just to get down there, just for the sake of saying that he did it.
Right.
And then Cejudo is just as fired up as ever right now.
Right.
At the same time, that fight really could have went either way with him and Johnson.
Definitely.
So,
I mean, it was one of those when they were announcing the decision, you're like, oh, do the right thing, but it's also close, so it could go either way type thing. You know what I mean?
I'm going to go Dillashaw.
Okay. I'm going Cejudo. So I think either way, they're both great fighters,
right.
And this is a great fight. But yeah, we'll see.
What's interesting about this card is we're so used to saying the word stacked, with whether it be a number of title fights or title eliminators, whatever you may categorize that as. This is really more so not just the debut on ESPN/ESPN Plus. It's really just the proponents that what is making up this card, the storylines for how they booked this card, just like we just went over between Greg Hardy, Ostovich, Paige VanZant, Cerrone, Hernandez that we just went over as well. There's a couple like true, hey, if I could beat this guy, I could be right there at the top with your Benavidez, Dustin Ortiz. So you kind of have a little bit of everything on this card.
Agreed.
So it's like a variety of different things versus just like, oh, it's going to be stacked because if this person wins, he'll get the title shot and so on and so forth.
Right.
So
honestly, March is stacked. Oof.
Yeah, the 235 card.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, when they go back to Vegas, it's like, yeah, sorry we had to move the card, but we're going to make up for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as everything
Yeah,
stays intact.
No picograms or whatever we didn't talk about.
Yeah, but no, this card's coming up next week, and then after that, there's this talk about stacks that next weekend between Bellator, their big tentpole event with Fedor and Bader.
Yeah.
NXT TakeOver, Phoenix, the Royal Rumble. So there's a lot of content we're going to be covering, I believe, in the next 2 weeks. So
and you never know about All Elite either.
Yeah, All Elite as well.
Oof,
that TV deal is the big rumor right now. We don't know when that's going to break. It's got to break, though. I mean, Jericho's already coming out saying, I signed because we're getting a TV deal, and it's going to be a big deal.
Yep. So there it is.
Until next time, guys, Justin, Doug, and we'll catch you guys later.